Hello and welcome to the exciting world of Japanese fruit tree. I'm here to give you the perfect introduction to the basics of pruning. This video will help you to grasp the fundamentals of pruning, a skill honed over 1,000 years. Even if you're starting from the scratch, this video will elevate your pruning skill. Did you know some fruit in Japan can cost up to 5,000 yen each? It's about 70 or $80 each. It's so surprising to see the student in another country casually eating apples for lunch. Japanese fruit tree growing technique is the best in the world, I bet, especially in producing delicious fruits. So enjoy and learn from this video. Let's get diving. Fruit trees have their own unique biology, but basic principles are the same. Without understanding a tree's biology, you can't prune effectively. If you don't know how to prune, it's better not to cut the trees at all. Many people think pruning leads to more fruits, but incorrect pruning can harm the taste and even stop fruit production. Many trees in your garden might not need any cutting at all. For example, this image probably shows a plum tree or something. No strong branches. Weak ones grow just a few centimeters each year and then stop. Every year, this tree gets more weak branches. I think it will have lots of flowers, but the fruits might not be big or very sweet. It's great enjoying the flowers as is without extra pruning. At the end of this video, I'll also explain how to create such a tree. But mainly, I'll talk about how to prune for bigger and tastier fruits in large amounts. When you start pruning, the question of what to cut first arises. First and foremost, it's crucial to consider the structure of the tree. No matter how you prune the tip parts, if the original structure isn't good, it won't bear good fruits. The structure is incredibly important. Even if you read pruning books or searching on the internet, you will first find the discussions about the framework. The reason this is written first is because of its great importance. How the tree's structure is formed completely changes how you should cut the tips. Many people find the explanation of structure confusing, so they neglect it and just trim the tips a little instead. However, if the structure is poor, no matter how much you work on the tips, it won't make sense. The key is how to create the framework of the tree. The ideal framework has a trunk growing from the ground, with the main branch forking off from there. These branches spread in an open center style, allowing sunlight to reach inside. Ensure good sun exposure. Having 3 or 4 main branches is fine, but in Japan, it is said that having 2 main branches is the most understandable. Although this is the ideal, it's not common for garden trees to take this perfect structure. However, what you need to do is decide on these main branches. These main branches are like the king. It's king. Protecting this king is the most important part of tree pruning. First, you must decide in your mind that this branch is the king. Without this mindset, you can't begin pruning. For example, this persimmon tree is quite open, so it's easy to work with. First of all, decide on the main branches. Decide that this will be the framework you use for life. Another one. This tree has branches growing upwards, but since I don't want to prune or harvest at high place forever, so you can remove them. How about using 2 branches that extend lower down and another 2 from the bottom as the framework? It is important whatever you make this decision in your mind. If you plant in a narrow space like this, it's fine to grow the main branch straight up in central leader. Japan is a very compact country, so many home fruit trees are like this. In this case, there is 1 main branch growing straight up. Consider growing the main branches straight and forming a tree-like structure. Alternatively, you can also make a horizontally spread branch the main one. It might be thin now, but you decide to grow it larger and develop this branch as the scaffold branches of framework. You can have 1, 2, or even create 4 main branches. Making 5 or 6 is not impossible. It's not impossible, but it can get complicated, just a bit complicated. Losing the king of main branches is like losing your country, and it's when the tree, as a nation, is defeated. The ideal main branch, the king, should have an angle of more than 40 degrees. It's better to avoid angle less than 40 degrees if possible. But there are no better options. It's still acceptable. I'll explain the reason for this later. You're free to choose the branches to keep as the main ones, depending on the direction you want for the structure. First, eliminate the branches that interface with these main branches. The most obstructive are the strong branches growing from the upper side of scaffold branches. All plants tend to grow towards their tips, but the force to grow upwards is even stronger. When such branches are present, the nutrients flow to their upward growing branches, weakening the branches in the desired direction. In nature, all plants compete with other plants to spread their leaves as high as possible. If they are shaded, they may not receive enough light and could die. Therefore, there's a strong tendency in plants to grow as high as possible. Once you've decided on the main branch, remove all the thick branches growing from their upper surface. And once you've decided that it's a king, run the saw along the branch and cut all branches that are growing upwards or overshading others. By doing this, the scaffold branch you want to keep will become stronger and transform into fine main branches. When cutting branches, always cut at the fork, this point and this point. If you cut halfway, the branch will die, because plants always need leaves to absorb nutrients and water. If there are no leaves, it means nutrients and water cannot be delivered. In other words, the part will die. It's a big mistake to think only that part will die. Internally, it dies back 4 to 5 times as much. And no new branches will never grow from that part. Whether the branch is thick or thin, be sure to cut it at fork point. Cutting at point cleanly prevents the branch from dying back to the base. Remember that all branches have dormant buds at their base. You can see now, but they are. And new branches can sprout from the upper side and become strong. So carefully remove the upper buds, leaving only the lower buds, like this. Please be aware of what are called callus cells in plants. Callus cells are special cells that can fix damaged parts. They can heal the area. If callus forms a dark place, it assumes it's underground and transforms into root cells. When you cut the trunk, a jelly-like callus forms and slowly becomes hard. Cutting at the edge allows the callus to wrap around and form, indicating a clean cut without damaging the tree. The callus formation is important for correctly cutting the tree. Especially when cutting large branches, it's very important. It's very important to cut at this location. In well-trained tree, the main branches, the king, are located. Next to the king's main branch that grows straight up, there are thick branches like rook in chess. This arrangement is very nice, since they don't directly come out from the top. Yeah? These thick branches are positioned as secondary to the main, like 1, 2, 3. These are the structure as well, with the central king and horizontal root branches being the ideal structure. Anyway, once this main framework is established, it should not be moved. This is principle for all trees. When arranging the rook-like secondary main branches, it's important to maintain proper intervals. If there is a secondary right branches on the left side, it's ideal to place another one on the opposite side, more than 50 centimeters apart. In addition, another one, place a weaker secondary branches. If secondary main branches are positioned closer than 50 centimeters, for example, on both sides, it forms a crossroad structure. In this arrangement, since nutrients are sent to both sides, the center tends to weaken. This is common to all trees. So it's important to keep more than 50 centimeters between secondary main branches. If they extend in the same direction, keeping them more than 1 meter apart. Perfect structure might be difficult in garden. However, over several years, you should try to get it as close as possible. It's important that the branches forming the framework don't cross each other. If they do cross, either remove the upper one to let the light reach below or remove the below one. By proper arranging the structural branches, you ensure the desired size of the tree. Ideally, secondary main branches should fill the gaps between the main branches when there are 1 or 2 main branches, particularly with 2 main branches extending in opposite direction. By placing secondary main branches is positions 1, 2, 3, 4. The branches spread evenly throughout the tree. They should be arranged without crossing. If it's difficult to spread them sideways and you are working with a central leader, and same way, arrange secondary main branches at intervals of 50 centimeters. If 2 branches extend in the same direction, it's important to maintain a space of more than 1 meter between them. The top tends to grow larger, so prune to reduce the upper part and shape it into a triangle, allowing light reach to the bottom. Fear of cutting large branches often results in a messy arrangement of branches. Okay, next I'll explain why frame building is so crucial. Once it's established, it should not be moved at all. The basic framework is almost the same for all plants, except for vine plants, and there's a lateral branches that emerge from the structure that bear fruits. And important thing, the suitable age for fruit production is different by varieties. Please pay close attention to which category your tree is. Let's start with the simplest one. Grape types. Grape type tree, like grapes, kiwis, and figs too. For grapes and figs, the most productive age for the lateral branches is their first year. In Japan, a long straight structure is preferred. From this scapula branch, first year lateral branch emerge. And since first year branch of grapes and figs are highly productive, so they are cut at the base after harvest in winter, leaving only 1 or 2 buds, and lateral branches growing from the same place next year, and the fruit harvested in summer and cut in winter. Repeat it. This is a pruning process for grapes and figs. It's very simple, simplest of all fruit trees. But kiwi fruits, kiwi follows the same biology but with a slightly different method. Kiwi also has a structure in place, but unlike grape, you don't cut the branches back to the base. Instead, keep the long branches that emerge from the base and get rid of the rest. Then train these long branches along the wire. It should look like a fishbone, yeah? With at least 30 or 50 centimeters between each branches. Keep the structure fixed and repeat this process with the lateral branches every year. Next, let's talk about peach type trees, including peaches, cherries, plums, and apricots. Yeah. For these trees, the productivity of the branches is highest from the second to the first year. Second and third year. The first year produces long lateral branches, but they are not very productive. If you leave these thin first year branches, 2 or 3 long branches will emerge from their tips in the second year. short branches will grow from the base. These short branches produce many flowers and high quality fruits. First year branches aren't very productive, but in the second and third years, they produce many short branches which are highly productive. Keeping just one of these tip branches increases productivity in the second and third year. However, after 4 years, these short branches dry up and disappear. To prevent the tree from becoming too crowded, you have to remove these branches after 4 or 5 years. Instead, new first year branch emerge from the base, renewing the lateral branches in 4 or 5 years. The ideal tree has plenty of new first year branches and highly productive second and third year branches at the same time. After 4 or 5 years, cut branches from the base. Switching to a new first and second year branches, this way, fruit trees are managed over several years. Planning for the next year and the year after, keep the structure fixed and repeat the process with the lateral branches every year. Next, we have the apple tree type, apple, which also includes apples and pears and quinces. They are almost same. They are almost same as peach type trees. But pears and apples, their branches have a long productive period. It's very long. From the 3rd to 10th year, some varieties peak in 3rd year, their 3rd year, while others may remain productive for up to 10 years. In the first year, only the bud at the tip of the long branch will bloom. But fruit from this bud is not tasty. These trees are grown until the lateral branches reach their most delicious stage in the 3rd year. For long-lasting varieties, these branches are used for up to 10 years. Therefore, apple type tree have a long update frequency, one of the more challenging trees to prune. The concept is similar to the peach tree. Next is citrus type. I'm not very familiar with tropical fruit trees as Japan is not a tropical region, but citrus fruits are commonly grown in Japan. For the citrus type, fruit is produced on only the 2nd year branches. Branches that bore fruit this year will not bear fruit next year, but the branches that didn't bear fruit this year will next year, okay? Therefore, it's recommended to prune every 2 years rather than annually. Citrus tree always bear fruit at the tip, causing the branch to sag under the weight. If the branches sag too much, you might need to prune them. Remember that over pruning more than 20% of an evergreen tree can weaken it, unlike the deciduous tree. Lastly, we have the persimmon tree, persimmon type, major fruit in Asia. In Japan, persimmon and chestnuts is this category. These trees are productive on branches older than 1 year. But since the first year branches are also excellent, they are updated annually if possible. However, it's fine to grow lateral branches for 2 or 4 years. Be careful, persimmon branches have flowers only 2 or 3 buds at the tip. Never do head cutting. Yeah, just thin out and keep the interval of branches about 30 centimeters. So you see how important the structure is. Once the scaffold branch is established, advanced pruning is performed annually. If the structure isn't properly completed, that's the first thing to work on. While annual pruning and technique are important, they are meaningless without a well-formed structure. Even if you prune carefully, if the scaffold branches overlap and create shade, good fruit will not grow. In addition to the structural branch and the lateral branch, there are one more branch. It's this. Very strong and vigorous branches in the first year. They are vertical and strong branches. I'm not sure what you call them, but I don't know, excessive growth branches, water sprout, shoot, sucker. Anyway, talking about thick branches, these vigorous branches, I call this vigorous branches. Okay? For example, consider the plum tree in your garden. The structure is already completed, but it's a bit complex. It receives plenty of sunlight, so it's okay. From there, strong vertical branches grow, but they are mostly vigorous branches. It's important not to cut these vigorous branches too short, just like this. Never cut head cutting, because they are in the way. Don't cut like this. Vigorous branches usually grow from the upper side of the main branch, trying to become taller than the other plants. It's not good to cut these branches halfway. They need to be cut from the base, just thin out. Okay? Cutting the vigorous branches that were receiving a lot of nutrients will only result in more growth, like this. Yeah. Pruning vigorous branches should be the first step of when new pruning starts. Leaving upstanding vigorous branches should be avoided as they tend to become stronger. They grow even bigger and behave like a king. He says, I'm king. Creating shade and high positions and dying out all the branches below. If you thin out these branches from the base, leave only weak branches, management will be so easy. Completely removing all vigorous branches from their base, it might sometimes leave tree bare, nothing left. Then, vertical vigorous branch can be calmed by pulling them down, like this. Not about vertical. Bend and train, like this. By pulling the branch down, the tree will start to produce more flowers and fruits here, and the short branch will sprout here. Wow. Pulling them down encourages fruiting. Okay? To understand this concept, remember the two terms vegetative growth and reproductive growth. Vegetative growth refers to growing period, which is what we usually consider as growth. On the other side, reproductive growth refers to the activity of producing flowers and fruits and living offsprings. All plants maintain a balance between these two types of growth. Cultivating plants means adjusting this balance. Yeah. The period when the plants stretch branches and plant leaves is called vegetative growth. It can take about 5 years for a tree to bear fruit after it is planted. This means that initially they only grow vegetatively and increase in size. Human beings grow up without reproduction during their childhood. Yeah? Plants follow the similar pattern. Humans begin to relationship when they reach certain stage of growth, and the same is true for plants. For example, plants like lettuce first do vegetative growth, growing leaves bigger and bigger, and they stop. They switch to reproductive growth and stretching a stem, making flowers, and when they are growing, time ends. But the fruit plants like tomato, eggplants, and these fruit trees, they need to do vegetative growth and reproductive growth at the same time. If a tree has only weak branches, whole tree might be weak. But if it has only strong branches, it's still focusing on vegetative growth and might not make fruits, or the fruits might not taste good. Bending strong branches helps the plants shift to vegetative growth to reproductive growth, making it easier for flowers and fruits to form. In a small garden, plants often do more vegetative growth. This is because the roots have a lot of space underground to grow. So the plant tries to get bigger, but the top part gets trimmed off to fit the garden, affects its growth. Many people want to grow a small tree, but it's important to understand that the growth of the above ground part of the tree is proportional to the growth underground. As the roots grow, the above ground part will also grow. The above part grows and roots grow. If you make only the above part smaller, the roots will continue to absorb the same amount of nutrients and a large number of strong branches will sprout. Limiting the range of the roots can help to grow a smaller tree. For example, in potted plants, the range of the roots is naturally restricted. Japanese farmers use a technique called root zone restriction. This is a method of planting trees within a limited boundary to burying a root barrier seed that allows water to pass through while blocking the roots. If the tree's roots are kept in a small area, the tree stays smaller and calmer, and its fruits taste better. It might not make as much as a tree with more space, but the fruits can be better because the tree focuses more on making fruits and flowers, reproductive growth. For trees already in ground, just cutting the top part might not help if the roots are still big. The tree can grow vigorously again. In this case, cutting some of the roots underground can help. Trees in rich soil or near garden with fertilizer often grow too many leaves and branches and not enough flowers and fruits. You can fix this digging up and cutting the big roots to make the tree calmer. Using this method, you may not show big changes in the first year, but after 2 or 3 years, the tree usually becomes calmer and grows fewer strong branches. Also, digging and cutting roots is too tough. Another method is girdling. Girdling means cutting a ring around the tree's trunk. It stops nutrients and water from going up for a while, which slows down the tree's growth. It's important to do girdling 1 or 2 months after the full bloomed. This makes the fruit taste better and also controls how big the tree grows. To keep a tree small, you should limit the root space, cut the roots, or use methods like girdling. The timing of pruning varies depending on the type of the tree. For deciduous trees, the pruning is after the leaves have fallen and before new buds appear, typically from December to January in Japan. This is because the tree is dormant season. Minimize the damage caused by pruning. On the other hand, pruning of evergreen tree is recommended after March. These plants are sensitive to cold, and especially citrus trees undergo flower bud differentiation from January to February. So prune during this period should be avoided. Summer pruning is also important for deciduous tree since flower bud differentiation occurs in previous summer. Removing vertical vigorous branches before this period, you can increase the number of flowers for next year. The timing of pruning has significant impact on the changes in the tree. Pruning deciduous tree in winter leads to strong growth the following year, while pruning in summer calms the tree and make it slightly weaker. This is related to 2 components, carbon and nitrogen. Plants create carbohydrates through photosynthesis. Plants absorb a lot of light, produce carbon, and send it to branch in autumn as leaves fall. In evergreens, much of it is stored in the leaves themselves in winter when fertilizer is nitrogen. Fertilizer is often applied. The carbon stored in summer and the nitrogen supplied in winter affect the tree's growth. So carbohydrates are produced with just carbon, it's C, and water, H2O. Okay? But amino acids, which form proteins, also require nitrogen, it's N. Nitrogen fertilizer applied in winter is absorbed by the roots and circulate the whole tree with leaf transpiration in spring. Nitrogen actively circulates within the tree, producing various compounds. Nitrogen is important for the composition of leaves. Fertilizing makes the leaves lush and healthy. Lush leaves perform photosynthesis, sending sugar to the fruits, making them large and tasty. Pruning a tree in winter reduces only just carbon. At this time, nitrogen is stored in the underground part, no transpiration. Okay? And in spring, nitrogen rises to the upper part. When nitrogen moves up in spring, the concentration of nitrogen increases, tipping the carbon-nitrogen ratio, CN ratio, towards to nitrogen. A higher nitrogen concentration tends to favor vegetative growth. Pruning in winter decreases the carbon content of the tree. As a result, the proportion of nitrogen increases, and the new branch grows vigorously. Pruning in summer reduces both carbon and nitrogen. This moderates the tree's growth. If you want to control the growth of a tree, pruning in summer, spring to summer is effective. Also, summer pruning can cause significant damage on the tree. It's gradually settled in a calmer state. For ornamental trees, aimed only flowers, pruning from spring to summer is common. This weakens the growth of the tree and promotes reproductive growth. However, for fruit tree, if summer pruning makes the trees too weak, it can affect the size and taste of the fruits. Therefore, balancing vegetative growth and reproductive growth is very important. Okay? Finally, let's discuss plant hormones. There are many types of plant hormones, but I'll focus on the three particularly important for pruning: auxins, cytokinins, and gibberellin. Understanding plant hormone is crucial in fruit tree pruning. It might be difficult for beginners. Auxins are hormones involved in a plant's gravity perception. Gravity. For example, when growing plants in space, you might see roots growing upwards and branches extending downwards due to the absence of gravity. Think of auxins as hormones that create roots. Okay? Auxin creates roots. But auxins are made at the tip, mainly at the top buds. They are not made in the roots, which is a common mistake. Made from top part and going downwards and making the roots. Auxin is like a follow me hormone. Follow me. I am going. You don't go. I'm going. Follow me hormone. Causing apical dominance. Where the apical bud grows strongest, auxin gives the plants the strength to grow upwards. If left alone this, the topmost bud grows the longest. If the tip is cut off, cytokinins become active. This hormone promotes the growth of branches that spread outwards, not upwards, sideways. Cytokinins stimulate bud sprouting. Unlike auxins which are commanding leader, don't go, I'm going, follow me, hormone, yeah? Cytokinins, let's go together, I want to play with everyone, hormone. He wants to play everyone. Since auxins suppress the activity of cytokinins, plants tend to grow upwards. But cutting at the tip weakens the influence of auxins and activating cytokinins and allowing branches to spread sideways. When you're planting a fruit tree, cutting at the tip changes the angle of spreading of branches, making them spread out more easily. If you have a long branch, just cutting at the tip little to activate cytokinins, making it easier for many branches to sprout. Yeah. However, cutting too short can produce strong branches, as I mentioned. So it's important to only trim a tip slightly. Auxins are produced at the highest part of the tree and descend to underground part. When a tree is horizontal, auxins are strongly activated on the lower side according to gravity, concentrating their growing inhibiting effect on the lower part. This activates the cytokinin in upper part, making it easier for branch to emerge from the top. When choosing the main branch, I said that better the angle of more than 40 degrees is better. I said if it's close to horizontal, vigorous branches tend to emerge upwards because of the hormone. If a tree grows straight and then drop a bit down, vigorous branches are likely to emerge from this part. This is due to hormone balance issue. And last one is gibberellin. Gibberellin is a hormone normally used to make grapes seedless. They are like hard-working type of hormone. I'll do my best hormone, yeah. Activate strong excessive growth branches and vigorous branches. They get activated by absorbing lots of fertilizer and even water. It's playing a role when plants lean towards the vegetative growth. When gibberellin is active, it means the plant is absorbing a lot of fertilizer or water from the roots. This hormone is available at home center. You can buy it. When you apply it to the base of the branch in spring, it makes branch grow vigorously. Understanding the function of auxins, cytokinins, and gibberellin, as well as balance between vegetative growth and reproductive growth, can deepen your garden knowledge. Yeah? Okay. If you found this video interesting, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. I usually talk in Japanese, but if there are lots of interest, I might try to make them in English. Okay? Bye.